أهلا بكم مشاهدينا الكرام إلى حلقة جديدة من مستقبل الطاقة. هذه ملفاتنا. نمو ضعيف لطاقة الرياح، والمطلوب زيادة التركيبات ب3 أضعاف لمواكبة المستهدفات المناخية. اختراع جديد في عالم البطاريات يسمح بشحن السيارة الكهربائية خلال 6 دقائق. بعد سنوات من النمو الفائق السرعة، مرت طاقة الرياح بأزمة مؤخرا أدت إلى توقف العديد من المشاريع أو تأخرها، وإفلاس العديد من الشركات العاملة في هذا القطاع. لكن هناك مؤشرات إلى بدء التعافي في القطاع، فهل ستعود الطفرة إلى سابق عهدها؟ تركيبات طاقة الرياح الجديدة وصلت إلى 117 غيغاواط العام الماضي، بنمو بلغ 50% بفضل المشاريع التي بدأت في السنوات السابقة لتقطع وللمرة الأولى حاجز 1 تيراوات من التركيبات التراكمية. لكن هذا لا يخفي أعراض التباطؤ، فقبل عقد من الزمن كانت طفرة طاقة الرياح تسير بسرعة متقاربة مع طاقة الشمسية، لكن الطاقة الشمسية تسارعت بعد ذلك بشكل أكبر بكثير بفضل الاستثمارات الضخمة لزيادة القدرة التصنيعية، حيث من المتوقع أن تقفز التركيبات الشمسية بنسبة 34% هذا العام، مقارنة بزيادة 5% فقط للرياح وفقا لBNEF. الأهم أن وتيرة التركيبات الحالية بعيدة عما هو مطلوب لتحقيق الهدف العالمي لمضاعفة القدرة المتجددة إلى 3 أمثالها بحلول عام 2030، وهو الهدف الذي تم الإعلان عنه في محادثات المناخ في دبي COP 28 العام الماضي. ولتعود طاقة الرياح إلى النمو المستهدف، يشير تقرير صادر عن طاقة الرياح العالمي أو تقرير صادر عن المجلس العالمي لطاقة الرياح، يشير إلى أن التركيبات السنوية تحتاج إلى المضاعفة 3 مرات لتصل إلى 320 جيجاوات على مدى العقد المقبل. تقرير المجلس العالمي لطاقة الرياح أيضا يؤكد أن الطلب العالمي ما زال قويا، ولكن الاختناقات الحالية لها أسباب عديدة، من أبرزها عدم كفاية إمداد المعدات، ونقص سعة الشبكة الكهربائية، وقضايا التراخيص والتصاريح. هذه المشكلات تؤدي إلى تخلف طاقة الرياح عن الوصول إلى حصتها المستهدفة من إنتاج الطاقة الكهربائية، إذ تتوقع BNEF أنه بحلول عام 2030 لن تصل طاقة الرياح إلى أكثر من 77% فقط مما هو مطلوب لوضع العالم على المسار الصحيح للوصول إلى المستهدفات المناخية، هذا بالمقارنة ب90% التي ستحققها الطاقة الشمسية في 2030. الطاقة الشمسية لديها ميزات كثيرة بالمقارنة مع طاقة الرياح، منها أن المعدات أصغر وأقل وزنا ويمكن تركيبها في أي مكان، بينما توربينات الرياح ضخمة وبعضها ضخم جدا إلى درجة أنها تحتاج إلى رافعات عملاقة والطائرات وسفن خاصة لتوصيلها وتثبيتها. أيضا أصوات المراوح مزعجة جدا، ما يجعل من الضروري إبقائها بعيدة عن مناطق السكن. ولكن المشكلة الأكبر تكمن في التكلفة، فبحلول نهاية العام الماضي ارتفعت تكلفة الطاقة من مزارع الرياح البرية الجديدة في الولايات المتحدة، ارتفعت بنحو 40% من أدنى مستوى قياسي تم الوصول إليه عام 2021. كما ارتفعت التكلفة في ألمانيا مثلا بنسبة 35% من أدنى مستوى لها على الإطلاق في عام 2019. إذن بعد أزمة استمرت لعدة سنوات، هل بدأت صناعة طاقة الرياح بالتعافي؟ هذا هو السؤال الذي طرحناه على بن باكويل الرئيس التنفيذي للمجلس العالمي لطاقة الرياح في هذه المقابلة التي أجراها الزميل يحيى الرفاعي. لنتابع.
First of all, the wind industry is seeing record growth every year. So I wouldn't describe what's happened the last few years as a crisis, but certainly we faced pressures around inflation and some supply chain constraints, and that's led to a recalibration of the industry in many parts of the world. But we're growing at a fairly fast rate. So last year we had record growth of 117 gigawatts. This year we're expecting about 130 gigawatts. Next year we go to 148 gigawatts, and then we build towards the end of the decade to around 200 gigawatts a year. So we're on a trajectory to double installations towards the end of this decade. So I wouldn't say we're in crisis, but certainly we've had challenges that we've been overcoming.
وأين ترى نقاطا مضيئة أكثر في طاقة الرياح على اليابسة أم طاقة الرياح البحرية؟
So onshore is growing at a renewed rate. There's the big mature markets which are growing fast. So that includes Europe, places like Germany, the US, and of course China, which is growing fastest of all. But there's also a lot of new markets coming into play. Places like the Middle East, Central Asia, and then also what we're seeing is global offshore is growing faster than onshore in terms of average growth per year. So offshore is actually really becoming a very, very important part of this.
هل من علامات تشير إلى عودة مصنعي توربينات الرياح الغربيين نحو الربحية؟
Indeed we are, and you'll have seen the largest Western turbine manufacturer returned to profitability last year. We expect the others to do so as well. And again, I mean, some of this was about being able to pass on the price rises caused by global inflation through to their customers, and that's now happened and is happening. So yes, we expect the Western OEMs to return to profitability. And again, what we're also seeing is record orders. So all these companies now have an enormous pipeline of orders to fulfill. So we're fairly confident.
وكيف يؤثر مصنعو توربينات الرياح الصينيين على الصناعة والسوق على خلفية تباطؤ الاقتصاد الصيني وما يصفه البعض بأنه قدرات إنتاج صينية فائضة؟
Well, China is the biggest single wind market in the world, and we expect them to continue installing at a really high rate. So probably around 85 gigawatts every single year. So China's market is going to continue to really grow. What we are expecting is for the rest of the world to start to catch up over the next 5 years. So we're seeing accelerated growth in some of the other markets, as I mentioned. The Chinese companies have built up big industrial capacity and are starting to export to some parts of the world. But Chinese production is still mainly for China. Although China is a very important part also in terms of supplying components to the rest of the world. And then in terms of the overall supply chain, when we think about supply chain, we also need to think about things like grid equipment, cables, transmission equipment, transformers, but also all the equipment we need to install the wind turbines around the world, so things like installation vessels for offshore wind. So if growth goes to where it needs to reach tripling target, to be on a track for net zero, we're going to need a lot more supply chain all around the world in order to be able to meet this challenge.
مؤسسة ICIS تشير إلى أن أوروبا هذا العام سجلت رقما قياسيا في عدد الساعات التي انخفضت فيها أسعار الكهرباء تحت الصفر. ما الذي يؤدي إلى ذلك؟ وكيف يمكن أن ينعكس ذلك على جدوى مشاريع واستثمارات صناعة الرياح مستقبلا؟
Well, I think it's a real challenge that you've identified, and we're seeing this trend, as you say, around Europe of negative prices. It affects, I think, the energy transition as a whole, and it impacts the economic model of companies who are trying to build new projects. There needs to be, in my view, some reform of the market in order to address the different types of energy now that we have upon the market and which the market will be based on, which are no longer the old fossil fuel energy, but is variable renewable energy. And then the other thing is we need more connectivity, flexibility in markets. So one of the solutions towards these negative prices is to have Europe completely connected, to have flexibility in the market, and then the market will be much more balanced, and you won't get these kind of big surges in markets when you get a particular type of power which is abundant for a particular time frame.
وما هي أبرز التحديات التي تواجه هذه الصناعة من وجهة نظرك؟
The main challenges that we see, first of all, is around planning and permitting. We simply can't build fast enough, and that's most places in the world. So that means the projects are there, the projects have been committed, and the finance is there, but you simply can't build because government permitting is not fast enough. So that's the first question, and that really has delayed things in many major markets. So getting better at permitting and planning and getting governments to be more efficient and more streamlined in permitting is probably one of the biggest challenges. The second challenge is really around supply chain and being able to build the supply chain quick enough and in the right places to be able to fulfill this huge demand that we're foreseeing. And again, a lot of that is to do with planning, but also making sure that the right price signals are there for people to be able to invest in supply chain. Because we're talking about investments that you need to make several years ahead, whether that's a factory making cables or a factory making components, or building a new port, or building an installation vessel. So supply chain needs to be thought about as something on a kind of 10-year horizon. We can't just award projects and then expect everything to be in place. So I think those are a couple of the main challenges we face. But we're pretty confident in terms of the price and the cost. We're still far more competitive than comparative fossil fuel energy, whether that's gas or coal for power plants. So we're extremely competitive. So we're in the overall economics. We're very, very confident. The challenges we face are mainly around implementation and being able to grow fast enough.
وما هي نظرتك المستقبلية لقطاع طاقة الرياح في المنطقة؟
Yeah, well, we're quite excited about the Middle East as a region, and also Central Asia as well, because they're relatively newer markets. They've got very, very good wind resources, no space constraints, and also good infrastructure, and there's a lot of investment capacity in the region. So a couple of the bright spots are Egypt, where they're doing a lot of large-scale wind projects, but also wind with hydrogen, green hydrogen. Saudi Arabia, we've seen, has had very large-scale auctions for wind power, and those are starting to be built out. So we're expecting Saudi Arabia to be a fairly important market going forward. And then we've also seen in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan as well. And then to add to in North Africa, Morocco has been a very good market as well. So we're really expecting this region to become quite a big driver for growth in the coming years.
نتوقف الآن مشاهدينا مع فاصل قصير نتابع بعده في مستقبل الطاقة. أخف من الألومنيوم وأفضل من الليثيوم. الجرافين مادة تعد بطفرة في صناعة البطاريات. أهلا بكم. صناعة البطاريات هي العنصر الأكثر حرجا في انتشار السيارات الكهربائية نظرا للوقت الطويل الذي تتطلبه عملية الشحن، وعلامة الاستفهام التي تظل مطروحة حول العمر الافتراضي للبطارية. حاليا تعتبر بطاريات الليثيوم الأكثر نجاحا، لكن هناك ابتكار جديد لبطاريات الجرافين، وهي كما يقول منتجوها تسمح بشحن السيارة خلال 6 دقائق فقط. الزميل يحيى الرفاعي التقى بلال شيخ الرئيس التنفيذي للتسويق في انرجي للحديث عن هذه التقنية.
Supercapacitor-based energy storage systems are the evolution of what we know as lithium-ion batteries. It's the transition from standard chemical batteries to a new era of non-chemical, safe, environmentally friendly and very efficient energy storage systems. This technology is wholly and solely developed in the United Arab Emirates, something we are very proud of, and it's being rolled out across the world now in 57 countries, including NEOM in Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom and the United States. Supercapacitor-based energy storage has exceptionally high performance statistics. For example, it can operate between -30 and +70 degrees Celsius. It's also extremely efficient, whereby it can essentially throughput 99.1% of the energy that comes from the energy generation to the output. It can withstand very harsh conditions. It can charge extremely quickly. We have done work on electric vehicles whereby we have charged them in under 6 minutes and they can go for an exceptionally long range. And it's also very safe. It doesn't catch fire, doesn't have any risk of thermal runaway. These are just some of the attributes associated with supercap energy storage.
مكثفاتكم الممتازة تعتمد على مادة الجرافين. ما هي مصادر هذه المادة وهل هي متوفرة أكثر من الليثيوم؟
So the technology was essentially developed by an inventor called Wasim Ashraf Qureshi. Now, he essentially started working on supercapacitor technology, and supercapacitors is a common form of power electronic power conditioning in 2009. Now, in 2021, we had a major breakthrough whereby he had worked on a way to synthetically produce graphene. So today we have a synthetic graphene that we are using, which is abundantly available. Now it's similar to a lab-grown environment of producing graphene, and we are fortunate enough to have been able to both lower the cost and abundantly produce this raw material.
حدثنا أكثر عن شركتكم، ما هو حجم إنتاجكم وكم جهاز مكثف ممتاز قمتم ببيعه حتى الآن؟
Absolutely. So in 2024, this year, we had a huge development. We've been producing supercap-based energy storage systems in the UAE since 2018. 2024 this year, we partnered with a company called Apex, and Apex Investments have done a huge injection into our company. They're an Abu Dhabi listed company. This has enabled us to expand our current facility in Dubai to 6 gigawatt hours, and we are now about to launch a 10 gigawatt hour facility based in ICAD in Abu Dhabi.
وكيف نقارن كلفة تخزين الطاقة باستخدام المكثف الممتاز الذي تنتجوه مقارنة ببطاريات الليثيوم آيون؟
So there are two things that we have to consider here. One is the cost at the point of purchasing a lithium-ion battery, in which case we are on par, very competitive with lithium-ion. But the most important thing is the cost over life. A lithium-ion battery will degrade constantly. Its usage will finish in a couple of years. You can see that with some of the most important, some of the most expensive forms, such as your mobile phone. Now, the fact that lithium-ion degrades very quickly and its life is short means that you have to replace it constantly. So over life, we have an exceptionally long life. We have 500,000 cycles at cell level, translates to a minimum of 25 to 40 years of life. We give an exceptionally long warranty period compared to other battery systems as well. So we say that the cost to purchase our systems is a lot less, a lot more efficient than it is compared to lithium-ion. There's also the cost to the environment. Don't forget this. When you dispose of a lithium-ion battery, the land that you dispose of it in is unusable for many years. We are 80% biodegradable, 100% recyclable with a deferred long life.
ما هو الاستخدام الأمثل للمكثفات الممتازة؟ هل في المرافق الكهربائية أم في السيارات الكهربائية؟
Look, we're working with a number of OEMs today. The EV sector has always been a sector that we saw as being the primary sector that we wanted to enter in due to the sheer mass of vehicles that are going to be rolled out. Also because electric vehicles are an inevitability. If you look at the targets for several companies across the world, they want to achieve 50% electric vehicles rolled out by 2030. Now, our solution is quick charging, extended range, and very safe. Supercapacitor technology, NCAPS technology, if you have a collision, you're exposed to water, extreme temperatures, it doesn't damage the energy storage system. Very important. We're working at the moment with a number of OEMs from the United States and in Europe and in the UAE to start deploying our technology into electric vehicles.
ما الذي تحتاجه المكثفات الممتازة لتصبح أكثر رواجا في السيارات الكهربائية؟
Very excited. Look, for some of us, this is a dream. We never imagined that we would get to this point, but the world has an increasing demand for energy storage systems, from utilities to renewable energy systems, electric vehicle charging and electric vehicles. We're working across all of these platforms, data centers and others. We have a mammoth almost 40 gigawatt hours of MOUs being deployed, United Kingdom, Thailand, Africa, South Africa, United States, just to mention a few, Turkey and the UAE. And all of these deployments are going into several sectors. We're also going to be rolling out a number of manufacturing facilities. Fundamentally though, it originated in the UAE and we are very proud of this.
بهذا مشاهدينا نصل إلى ختام هذه الحلقة من مستقبل الطاقة. دائما تابعونا على منصة X تحت وسم هاشتاغ مستقبل الطاقة، ويمكنكم مشاهدة كل حلقات البرنامج كاملة على موقعنا الإلكتروني العربية.net/programs. إلى اللقاء.